I'm joined by the president of the Australian Jewish Association, David Adler. Now, you'll be surprised. I did say on this week, these 2 weeks that I'm on Inside the News, I did say it was my opportunity to introduce many of you to many of the writers that I am absolutely privileged to be allowed to publish in The Spectator Australia, and they obviously write elsewhere as well. David, you've written in this week's Spectator about the stench of anti-Semitism coming from the Greens, and it's all got to do with the definition of anti-Semitism. So, David, talk us through, firstly, what the definition is and why you are, what's your particular beef with the Greens, the Australian Greens?
Well, we have a number of beefs with the Greens, Rowan, but over the years, there have been accusations that the Greens have systematic anti-Semitism that's part of their ethos, that's part of their culture, because time after time we've had people saying outrageous things. But recently, just in November this year, the Greens have become the first political party in Australia to put themselves on the extreme of this issue by rejecting what is called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. Now, this is the world's most widely credible standard. It has been developed over years by experts in anti-Semitism and in Holocaust studies. It's been adopted by many Western countries around the world, including the United States and the United Kingdom. Even the UK Labour Party, and perhaps some of the Corbynistas through gritted teeth, have adopted the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. In Australia, it's bipartisan, the Liberal National Party government, as well as the Labor opposition. But the Greens, they have rejected it. And I suspect the reason that they have rejected it is because of their vehement bias against Israel. Because one of the things in the definition is that it defines where the only Jewish state in the world fits into the roadmap. Now, let me make it clear, you can criticise Israel in exactly the same way as you can criticise any other country. But if you apply ridiculous double standards to Israel and only to Israel, if you hold, for example, Jews in Australia collectively responsible for the actions of the Israeli government, if you deny Jewish people the right of national self-determination in the only Jewish country in the world, then you're crossing certain lines. And perhaps that's the reason, Rowan.
So they've rejected the definition, as you say. Even the Labor Party in Britain, one well established in the past for being led by an anti-Semite and for containing many anti-Semites within its midst. They did a great sort of so-called purging of anti-Semitic attitudes. Even they have accepted this definition, and so you've explained how the definition works.
Sure.
I guess if the Greens have rejected that definition, and you've given us good reasons why you think they've accepted it, have they put forward an alternative definition, or are they just saying, sorry, we don't know?
They've put forward an extraordinary statement about anti-Semitism that none of the mainstream Jewish community bodies in Australia have been consulted on. None of them have accepted it. They unfortunately have a history of saying some extraordinary things against Israel, and a few this year. Rowan, I've listed in the article that you referred to at least 7 examples, and we have many, many more. But you might recall that former high-profile Greens candidate Julian Burnside got in trouble earlier this year when Israel was defending itself against the rockets being fired from Hamas. He decides to say that the actions of Israel to the Palestinians is comparable to the Nazis against the Jews.
Yeah.
Now, obviously that's preposterous. We recently had Senator Janet Rice during a remembrance motion to commemorate the assassination of former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, something that's normally treated with great respect. She couldn't contain herself. She launches an attack into Israel in the Senate during a commemoration motion. And Senator Marine Faruqi decided in the Senate to end a speech with the catchy slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free.
Now explain that. Yes, explain that. Explain that phrase, because you hear that chanted in demonstrations.
You do.
Explain what it means.
It means all the land from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea shall be turned into some sort of free Palestine, which is can only be implemented if you believe in the elimination, the annihilation of the State of Israel, the deletion of the self-determination of the Jewish people in their traditional lands, and frankly, it could well be interpreted as genocide. So we see time and time and time again.
So to be fair to Marine, so David, to be fair to Marine Faruqi, she would no doubt say that that was not the interpretation that she meant to put upon those words. So we'll give her the benefit of the doubt there. But we certainly know that Julian Burnside removed his tweet. And you're correct that there have been many instances which have certainly raised questions and raised eyebrows. I've told you, David, before, my own story in Ramallah when asked about what a future Jewish state would look like compared to a future Palestinian state. I was told by an official representative of the Palestinian Liberation Organisation in front of 10 other Australian journalists. I was told specifically that a Palestinian state would have no Jews in it, and a Jewish state, they hummed and hawed and talked to each other and muttered to each other and decided in the end it would be allowed to have a handful of Jews in it. So that was the official PLO idea, which I've reported many times in the media here. Nobody else has. I'm the only person, although 10 journalists were there who heard it.
What you're alluding to, Rowan, is what used to be the typical leftist Green Party human rights approach has been abandoned by the Australian Greens. Normally, they would advocate things like tolerance, like integration, etc. They have taken the side which does the exact opposite, which wants ethnic cleansing. They have taken the side which opposes the rights of women, which opposes the rights of LGBTQ plus people, whatever the later series of letters is, that has they're opposing the country in the area that has the best environmental record. So the Greens have had to do a complete flip on their traditional values in order to take this particular position as well.
That's fascinating. David Adler, Australian Jewish Association. People can find you, your Facebook page. Tell us that.
That's the best. It's simply go onto Facebook, look at Australian Jewish Association, and you'll see our news and views and commentary updated a few times a day.
Thank you very much, David Adler, for coming on Inside the News.
Thank you, Rowan.